Now we all know James Harden as a free throw shooting, step back, you know, the whole nine, strip club going, whatever. But today I want to talk about how he uses communication to help the Nets. So here's a play against the Clippers. They're going in transition. It's him, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, Jeff Green, and Bruce Brown on the court. As you can see, he looks back and he sees who's trailing. He sees Kyrie, him and Kyrie meet eye line. But if you look right here, Nicholas Batum is pointing, telling someone to go get Joe Harris. Paul George is like, Kyrie is my man. James Harden notices that. Paul George says that. Kawhi's like, I'll go get him. Jeff Green. So boom. Jeff Green slips by, sets a screen. And so now it's James Harden versus Kawhi. James Harden notices that not everyone is on their correct man. Paul George is on Joe Harris. Pat Bev is on Jeff Green. Batum is on Kyrie. Kawhi is on James Harden. So he looks, he's like, okay, who has not the easiest defender, but a defender that they can take out the dribble. And you got Kyrie, one of the most potent offensive players in the NBA, going against Nicholas Batum. So boom, right here, notices, tells him everyone clears out, knowing what's going to happen. Bruce Brown clears out too. So now he passes it to him. He tells Bruce Brown right there. You can see it right there. And he looks at Bruce Brown, tells him, clear out, isolation, Kyrie versus Nicholas Batum. This is an ideal situation for the Nets because it's Kyrie Irving, basically what it is. And he goes through, pull up, yak 'em. So as you can see right here, the Nets have Jeff Green on Kawhi Leonard. Jeff Green is probably one of the best defenders on the Brooklyn Nets roster. So they have one Kawhi Leonard, Kawhi Leonard, one of the most potent offensive scorers in the NBA we've seen. So boom, they get it in. Nicholas Batum goes and sets a screen. Now they have Joe Harris on Kawhi Leonard. James Harden on the bottom notices this. He's like, damn, somebody's going to have to go double because Joe Harris is an above average defender, but he's not going to lock down Kawhi Leonard, So boom. James Harden slides down to the baseline, sees that Kawhi Leonard has the ball. He tells Bruce Brown, he's like, go double. He's like, I got yours. So he gets Paul George coming through, and Bruce Brown goes and double teams. And he gets Serge Ibaka and he has the baseline, and Kyrie has Paul George right here, and Jeff Green has Batum. So boom, he covers Serge Ibaka trying to get the three, or try to get the easy layup, and Kawhi Leonard has to pass it out because of the double team. So boom, passes it out to Paul George, and James Harden has enough time to make it to the baseline. Now, although Patrick Beverley makes the three, the team would rather live with Patrick Beverley making all the threes than have Kawhi Leonard score all the points. That's basically what the Nets are trying to live with. Now, right here is where his communication comes into full effect. You see Kyrie Irving is on the bottom right here. So he tells Kyrie right here, he says, hey, go get Terrence Mann. Now, Terrence Mann is not the most potent offensive scorer. He's a very good catch and shoot player, but he's not an ISO type of guy. James Harden knows that Kyrie is their best scorer off ball, and he knows that to conserve his energy, he needs him to guard catch and shoot guy like Terrence Mann. So boom, he tells him, he said, hey, guard right here. And then he tells Cabarrot, because Kyrie goes back into the half court right there, tells Cabarrot, he said, you got to guard Lou Will, who's to the left of him. As you can see, Cabarrot goes straight to Lou Will. And Cabarrot is an above average defender. However, to save Kyrie's energy, and you see how good of a help defender Kyrie Irving is, it helped the Nets defense right there, because they knew that Lou Will is going to take pick and rolls, and Kyrie helping off the baseline is going to help them a ton. And apparently they can just live with Terrence Mann scoring. Now here's another important play. James Harden is going against Marcus Morris in the post. The Clippers run a lot of sets where Marcus Morris has an ISO in the mid-range, sometimes near the elbow, but mostly right here where he usually is. So boom, James Harden versus Marcus Morris. If you look back to Houston small ball lineup last year, James Harden was guarding a big man in the post, and he was a really good post defender last year, to be honest. So as you can see, he's on Marcus Morris isolation post up. James Harden's been here before. He posted up. He was getting posted up all last year, right? Boom. Right here, DeAndre Jordan decides that he's gonna come and help, and James Harden doesn't really need help. He has Marcus Morris where he wants him. He has him away from the basket. Marcus Morris can also score from right here with like a step back, post up, whatever. But DeAndre Jordan coming over there was way too early. Marcus Morris had not made his move yet. It was way too early for him to come over there. So boom, Marcus Morris sees that Zubac is wide open. Zubac flares to the front right here, in between where Kyrie, Jeff Green, and DeAndre Jordan are. DeAndre Jordan's way too far. He's basically about to help. So Zubac gets an easy lay-in. DeAndre Jordan, he looks at DeAndre Jordan like, why'd you help for it? There's no reason to help. He's like, come on, man. Like, I had it. He had it ready. And honestly, he's not wrong right here. I'm sure the Nets worked this out, but he's looking at Kyrie, he's looking at Jeff Green, he's looking at DeAndre. He's like, why did you guys let him flare up so easily? He's like, DeAndre, why'd you help? I mean, that's what it takes. You got to communicate. You got to come see it. Because look, right here, Zubac flares straight through. Jeff Green, Kyrie, they didn't even get close to helping. He just flared right through them, like easily right through them. And all because DeAndre Jordan decided to help. So as you can see on this play right here, DeAndre Jordan goes and tells James Harden to go get on Paul George. But little does DeAndre Jordan know that James Harden knows the exact play that's coming up right here. So James Harden tells Cabarrot, he's like, no, stay. It's fine. So boom. They get it into Zubac. James Harden tells you, I don't think anyone picked this up right here. James Harden tells Cabarrot, go down right there. He tells him right here, points down. He's like, oh, he's about to cut, knowing the play that's about to happen. Cabarrot cuts right in front of Marcus Morris, is in a perfect position to defend the shot if Zubac passes it to him. James Harden covers up where Paul George is going to go. He knows the exact play that's happening right here. Comes all the way up, sees the pass about to occur, and slaps it out of bounds. Now here's another play where James Harden's IQ is on another level and he does his film study. James Harden knows the play that is coming up, so he tells DeAndre Jordan that he's going to have to go up. Points at DeAndre Jordan, tells him, he's like, you're going to have to go up right here. Knowing that Zubac is going to go set a screen for Paul George. So, boom, exactly what happens. Paul George gets the ball, Zubac sets the screen. James Harden slides to the middle, knowing that Zubac is going to cut through and have an easy lane as Paul George weaves to the baseline, leaving ample amount of space for Zubac to cut through and ample amount of passing space. But with James Harden knowing this play and seeing this play before, he stands right in front of where the passing lane is for Paul George. Paul George throws the pass behind Zubac, seeing that James Harden comes up, and it's a turnover. Now here's another play right here. Landry Shamet has the ball at the top. He's not usually the ball handler, so they're trying to get the ball into James Harden's hand. Terrence Mann is pressing all the way up, so James Harden cannot get the ball. So boom, Landry Shamet looks at him. He tells him to pass the ball to Bruce Brown. Passes the ball to Bruce Brown. DeAndre Jordan sets a back screen on Terrence Mann. Shamet clears out. You get the ball into James Harden, who's the point guard's hands. And they run a two-man game. Bruce Brown, James Harden. Bruce Brown is basically the big man in the Nets offense. He's a 6'5". He can shoot. He can lay the ball out. He can shoot floaters in the lane. But the Nets have been using him as a mismatch as a power forward because he's really good at getting rebounds and setting screens. So boom. He's going to set a screen on Terrence Mann. But he sets a screen. He sets a solid screen for a second, but he doesn't stay. And when he goes off of it, he goes into James Harden. So it allows Terrence Mann to get back into play. James Harden's trying not to hit Bruce Brown, so it could be an easy turnover. Paul George even gets a hand in there. Sways Harden's direction out of the way. Bruce Brown goes towards the way that James Harden is trying to go. He should have cleared out towards the middle of the key, going towards where DeAndre Jordan is, rather than towards where James Harden was. Forces James Harden to throw up a bad shot, and he gets a foul. He goes to Bruce Brown right here, and he tells him to set a more solid screen. Bruce Brown's like, I tried. And he got through it, But he was like, he could have stayed a little bit longer. Right here, look. Now here's a play where James Harden and Steve Nash are on the same page as a player and coach, point guard and coach. So boom, James Harden brings the ball up the floor. Look at Steve Nash, points his hand up. He's looking at Kyrie Irving right here. Kyrie Irving is in the left corner. Then he does this, which usually means to keep going up and down from baseline 3 to short corner 3. Just keep doing that, but then stay, right? He says stay again. Keep doing that, but stay. So James Harden dribbling the ball up the floor. You can see Kyrie came into the frame and went back out. Set the screen with DeAndre Jordan. And so it's an ISO. Now it's an ISO. James Harden versus Marcus Morris. And Kyrie Irving is steadily just keep moving up and down in that corner. So Patrick Beverley can't help. He can't come and switch. He has Marcus Morris on James Harden. James Harden is a great offensive player. And Marcus Morris is an above average defender. So the Nets have the advantage here. Isolation, James Harden. He's like, okay, let me take this. Takes him to the lane. No help. Gets the foul. Now, I'm sure there's a ton of more plays where James Harden had great communication, but these are the plays that really stood out to me in a very early game this year. This is like his third game in Brooklyn, and showed that James Harden has improved the way the Nets go about things. Before, they were just relying on Kyrie and KD to get them out of a lot of messes, but now everybody has a say in everything. And James Harden's offense, where it's a pick and roll with DeAndre Jordan and the shooters all around, gets everyone involved. Shout out to James Harden and the Nets. I believe that they're on the right track, and they've shown it this year. This is a very early game this year, but you can see by James Harden's communication that he's ready to win, and that is a very underestimated part of his game. He is a great communicator. He knows what he wants, and he knows what his coach wants.